The world trembled beneath the weight of its own destruction. Cities that once buzzed with life now lay in ruin, abandoned and decaying. The environment had become a constant, unpredictable force, typhoons and floods ravaging coastal cities, wildfires turning entire forests to ash, while earthquakes shattered the foundations of the earth itself. Humanity, once masters of technology, now found themselves at the mercy of the very forces they had set into motion. Technological marvels, once heralded as the saviors of the planet, had become its executioners. Genetic modification, once hoped to cure disease, now ran rampant, causing unforeseen mutations. AI systems that once promised to solve the world's most pressing problems had become unhinged, running amok and further destabilizing governments in their wake. It wasn't just nature that had turned against them. Wars raged over dwindling resources, water, food, and energy. Nations crumbled under the pressure, their leaders unable to stem the tide of chaos. Society, once a beacon of human achievement, now stood fractured, broken into factions desperate to cling to whatever was left. Earth, with all its riches, was slipping through humanity's fingers, and there was no one left with the answers. The human race was on the precipice, staring down into the abyss of its own failure, uncertain whether it could even survive the disaster it had caused. From the far reaches of the universe, an ancient and destructive force had awakened. A supernova, brighter than any star in living memory, erupted in the sky, sending shockwaves of energy across the galaxy. The brilliance of the explosion painted the heavens in fiery hues, casting shadows over Earth. It was no ordinary event. The energy of the supernova tore through space like a cosmic fist, slamming into the planet's electromagnetic field with a power that felt personal, like the universe itself had aimed its wrath at the planet. As the shockwaves collided with the Earth, they triggered a chain reaction of natural disasters. Tsunamis, bigger than anything humanity had ever seen, began to consume coastlines, while violent storms swept across the land. The planet's magnetic field, already destabilized by centuries of human activity, shifted violently, causing catastrophic earthquakes and the complete failure of electrical grids. For a brief moment, Earth seemed to be suspended in time, gripped by the terrible force of an unknowable entity. Humanity stood frozen, staring up at the sky, helpless before the cosmic power that was descending upon them. This was a warning, but it was one too late. The supernova's shockwaves weren't just a threat. They were a harbinger, a message from the universe that no one, no matter how advanced, could outrun the inevitability of collapse. Dr. Asha Kapoor, a brilliant astrophysicist, had been among the first to predict the arrival of the supernova's energy. But now, with the planet at the brink of annihilation, she wasn't certain that even the most advanced science could save them. In her eyes, the solution was hidden somewhere in the mysteries of the cosmos, perhaps in understanding the forces that had brought the universe to this point. She believed in science and human ingenuity, and she refused to believe humanity's fate was sealed. There had to be something, some way to push back against the dark tide. General Kieran Holt, on the other hand, had seen too much war, too much death. He knew the world would not survive unless drastic measures were taken. He was a man of action, trained to fight, to survive, no matter the cost. Holt had no time for idealistic notions of saving the world through understanding or reconciliation. If humanity was going to survive, they would need to do whatever it took to harness the power of the alien artifact, even if that meant using it in ways they didn't fully understand. To him, survival trumped all else. The tension between them was palpable. Where Kapoor saw hope in science, Holt saw a tool for survival. Both were correct, yet both were equally blind to the cost of their solutions. Together, they would have to navigate this ever-tightening noose of time, with Earth's fate hanging in the balance, and neither could see the full extent of the moral dilemmas they were about to face. Amid the chaos of the planet's collapse, humanity's final hope lay beneath the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Deep in the ice, buried for centuries, an alien artifact had been discovered. Its origins were unknown, its purpose even more so. But the technology it contained was beyond anything Earth had ever known. It radiated an energy that seemed to call out to those who found it, and its design was unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. Kapoor and Holt stood over the artifact, marveling at its potential and terrified by its implications. What had brought it to Earth? Was it a gift, a warning, or a curse? The discovery was simultaneously humanity's greatest chance for survival and a terrifying unknown. Could they trust it? Or would the artifact prove to be yet another piece of humanity's downfall? But as the world crumbled and governments collapsed, they had little choice but to place their trust in the artifact's power. With the supernova's shockwaves now irreversible, Earth had mere weeks before its fate was sealed. Could they unlock the secrets of this alien technology in time to save the planet? Or would their desperation drive them to make irreversible choices, damning not only themselves but the very fabric of the universe? Time was running out. With each passing day, the supernova's shockwaves drew closer to their peak. Earth had become a ticking clock, its seconds numbered, its fate sealed in the stars. Kapoor and Holt knew the time for decisions was now, but they were far from prepared. The artifact's power was mysterious, perhaps too advanced to understand. Without more time they didn't have. The urgency of the situation only added weight to their already fragile partnership. Kapoor's desire to study the artifact, to understand it before using it, clashed with Holt's unyielding belief that they needed to act. Now. Time wasn't a luxury they had anymore, and the pressure built as the supernova's waves approached. Could they find the solution in time? Could humanity overcome its destructive past? Or would the artifact become yet another tool of their undoing? As the artifact hummed with energy, both Kapoor and Holt realized the true nature of their dilemma. It wasn't just about survival, it was about the very nature of humanity. The artifact might hold the key to preventing Earth's collapse, but it also held the potential to alter the future forever. What if its power could change the course of human evolution or even lead them down a darker path? Kapoor couldn't help but wonder if their answers were too simple, if the universe had more terrifying lessons to teach them before their fate was decided. With every step, they moved closer to the unknown, unsure whether they were heading towards salvation or utter destruction. The artifact was their last chance, but the questions it raised were so much bigger. As they began their work, they were confronted not just with the forces of nature, but with humanity's place in the cosmos, and with the price they might have to pay to survive. Could they truly face the cosmic consequences of their actions? Could humanity truly escape the dark fate that had claimed so many before them? And in the distance, the shockwaves from the supernova drew closer, whispering their ancient warning. Time was running out, and Earth's last hope lay in the hands of two people torn between what was right and what was necessary. The world trembled as if it were alive, fighting to rid itself of humanity's greed. The skies crackled with energy as the shockwaves from the supernova hit, sending out bursts of cosmic force that reverberated through the Earth's fragile atmosphere. Earthquakes split the ground open, swallowing entire cities, while towering tsunamis crashed through coastal metropolises, tearing them apart in an instant. Above, the magnetic field shifted violently, and the air shimmered with electromagnetic chaos. Nature's wrath was no longer something to be feared. It was now humanity's only constant companion. Dr. Asha Kapoor and General Kieran Holt raced through the ruins of what once was a city, side by side, yet separated by an ocean of ideology. Kapoor's eyes were sharp, focusing on the horizon as though she could see beyond the destruction. The artifact in Antarctica was their last hope, a glimmer of salvation in a world that was vanishing. Holt, ever the soldier, kept his gaze fixed forward, determined to move faster, to get to their destination before the Earth collapsed entirely. The chaos was overwhelming, but there was no time for panic. Every minute counted. A week, perhaps two, before the supernova's full shockwaves reached Earth's core. After that, nothing would remain. The clock was ticking, and with it, the lives of billions. The race to Antarctica wasn't just about survival. It was a last-ditch effort to save what little humanity had left. The fragile alliance between Kapoor and Holt, formed out of necessity rather than trust, was already starting to fray. But there was no room for division. Not now. The artifact was their only hope. It had to be. Amid the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, buried beneath miles of ice, lay the artifact, a massive alien structure, its surface etched with symbols beyond human comprehension. It pulsed with an energy that felt alive, sending tremors through the cold air as Kapoor and Holt stood before it. A part of Kapoor was in awe of the artifact, drawn to its mysteries. This was not a weapon or a tool of destruction. It was something more, something ancient. Could it be the key to unlocking the universe's greatest secrets? But as she approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that the artifact's power was not something to be trifled with. Its energy was unlike anything they had encountered before, pulsing, alive, and terrifying in its intensity. Holt, ever pragmatic, regarded the artifact with a different lens. To him, it was a tool. It didn't matter how it worked or where it came from. It was their last hope for survival. It was their key to saving humanity. Whether it held answers to the universe's grand mysteries or not, Holt didn't care. His focus was on one thing, harnessing its power to stop Earth's collapse. The questions that Kapoor pondered seemed like a luxury they no longer had. "I don't care what it is," Holt said, his voice unwavering, eyes locked onto the artifact. "We need it to work or we won't have a planet to argue about." Kapoor's gaze softened, but the scientist within her couldn't ignore the truth. She had to believe there was more to this, even if Holt couldn't see it. They had no choice but to unlock its secrets, regardless of the dangers. As the sunless sky loomed overhead, Kapoor and Holt faced their first real obstacle. The artifact was a power source. Its energy core pulsed with an intensity that could change the very nature of existence. But to activate it, they needed heliothium, a rare element found only in the heart of a dying star. The thought was impossible. Human technology was nowhere near capable of venturing into the core of a star. Yet the military was no longer asking what was possible. They were demanding it. If heliothium could save Earth, it didn't matter how they got it. "We're sending ships to the star's core," Holt declared, his voice devoid of doubt. "The military has the technology. We're going to do whatever it takes." Kapoor's heart sank. The idea of using the military's most advanced weapons to extract the element from the heart of a dying star felt reckless, dangerous. She was a scientist, a researcher. She understood the risks. The technology might not even be able to withstand the conditions of a star's core. But Holt's mind was already set. The military's desperation was clear, and it was beginning to cloud the judgment of even the most level-headed minds. "This is madness," Kapoor whispered, her voice barely audible as she examined the artifact's glowing surface. "You're willing to risk everything on a gamble like this?" "It's not a gamble, Dr. Kapoor. It's the only way," Holt snapped back. "We're out of time. Humanity won't survive if we don't act. The artifact is our chance." He was right. Time was running out. The tension between Kapoor and Holt began to boil over. Their differing worldviews collided with an intensity that neither had anticipated. Kapoor wanted answers, wanted to study, to understand, and to ensure humanity was not condemned to the same mistakes that had led to this collapse. Holt, though, wasn't concerned with answers. He didn't have the luxury of pondering the unknown. Survival was the only priority, and the means didn't matter. "What if this artifact isn't what we think it is?" Kapoor asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "What if we're making a mistake? What if it's not a tool to save us, but a weapon that will bring about the end we've been avoiding?" "We don't have the luxury of speculation," Holt said, firmly, his jaw tightening. "You're thinking like a scientist, I'm thinking like a soldier. We need to survive, and that means using whatever we have to make that happen." They stood in the shadow of the artifact, each unwilling to back down. The world was ending, and yet, the biggest conflict between them wasn't the destruction of Earth. It was their differing visions for how humanity should survive. Kapoor, in her heart, knew she wasn't just fighting to save humanity. She was fighting to preserve something larger, something greater than survival. But Holt couldn't see that. To him, survival was everything. The distance between them grew. with every passing day. And every day Earth's end drew nearer. As Earth's fate hung in the balance, the military's reach grew more aggressive. Holt, now caught between his duty and the deepening chaos, allowed a faction of soldiers to begin manipulating the artifact's energy without fully understanding its dangers. It was reckless, but the military's desperation drove them forward. The risks were high, but they were also the only option. Kapoor, horrified by the unfolding events, stepped forward, her voice shaking. "We can't just use it like that, Holt. We don't know what it could do if you tamper with it." But before she could finish, a loud crack echoed through the ice, followed by the roar of engines. A rogue officer, someone far too ambitious and eager to claim the artifact's power, had sabotaged their efforts to keep control. Everything unraveled in an instant. Holt's soldiers, corrupted by their own desires, began using the artifact's power recklessly. Kapoor fought back the rising tide of panic. She had warned them, but now they were on the precipice of destroying everything. The artifact pulsed, with energy, its glow intensifying to an almost blinding level. Kapoor knew, whatever the artifact was, it wasn't ready for what they were trying to do. The consequences of using it like this would be catastrophic. Yet Holt, caught in the grip of military desperation, was no longer listening. The reality of the situation became clear. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about whether humanity could overcome its greatest flaw, its unyielding pursuit of power. Kapoor and Holt found themselves at a crossroads, staring at the artifact, with an understanding neither of them had expected. "We have to work together," Kapoor said softly, her voice tired but resolute. "We have to figure this out." Now, for the first time since the beginning of their journey, Holt didn't argue. His eyes were cold, calculating, but there was a flicker of something else. The soldier in him knew that this was their last chance. It wasn't about victory anymore. It was about survival, and whatever it took to ensure that. And so, with the weight of the world upon them, Kapoor and Holt put aside their differences. There was no more time for bickering. Humanity's fate rested in their hands. Earth no longer felt like the planet it once was. Where oceans had once glimmered with the promise of life, now there were only tidal waves, sweeping entire coastlines into oblivion. The sky crackled with an energy that felt as though the stars themselves were coming to claim what was left of the human race. Earthquakes split the ground with terrifying frequency, and volcanoes erupted as if the planet was trying to expel the very poison humanity had pumped into it for centuries. In every city across the globe, the scramble for survival intensified. Governments crumbled beneath the weight of their own incompetence. Infrastructure collapsed, leaving once thriving metropolises in ruin. And through it all, there was a palpable sense of dread, an understanding that humanity was powerless to stop what was happening. The supernova's shockwaves had only just begun their destruction. No one knew how long Earth had before its fate was sealed. Amid the chaos, Dr. Asha Kapoor and General Kieran Holt fought their way through the wreckage, their journey to Antarctica as urgent as the collapse of the world itself. For Kapoor, the mission was about hope. Hope that the alien artifact hidden beneath the ice held the key to humanity's survival. But Holt? Holt had long since abandoned hope in favor of pure survival. His eyes were fixed forward, scanning the horizon, while Kapoor's mind raced with calculations and possibilities. She believed there was something in the artifact, something that could change everything. Holt didn't care. Survival at all costs was his only concern. Their paths, though heading toward the same goal, seemed to divide with each passing hour. One clung to science and the other to the reality of what needed to be done to save Earth. They had only each other to rely on, and even that was starting to fray. The artifact hummed with a pulse of energy as Kapoor and Holt reached its frozen burial site deep beneath Antarctica's ice. The ancient alien structure stood in stark contrast to the world around it, its sleek surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow, untouched by time or human hands. The alien writing etched into its surface seemed almost to shift under Kapoor's gaze, as though it were alive. There was a deep resonance to the artifact, something that tugged at her very soul. This was no mere tool. It was a message with Trembling hands, Kapoor activated the interface, her fingers tracing the alien symbols, working to unlock the secrets it held. What she found in the deep data core chilled her to the bone. The artifact's message was clear. This was not the first civilization to face the ravages of a cosmic event. The beings that had created this device had watched their world burn. In the same manner that Earth was now suffering, humanity's fate was not unique. The supernova's shockwaves were not an isolated event. They were part of a cycle that had claimed countless civilizations across the universe. What if Earth wasn't meant to survive? What if humanity was merely the latest victim in an endless pattern of rise and fall? Kapoor's breath caught in her chest. The thought of humanity being nothing more than a footnote in an intergalactic cycle was too much to bear. Holt's expression remained unchanged. He was a man of action, of solutions, not of abstract thought. But Kapoor, gripped by the weight of what she had uncovered, wondered if their fight to survive was not only futile, it might be a cosmic inevitability. The military, once a unified force, now found itself fractured. As Earth's end drew near, a rogue faction within the ranks began to rise. Led by a radical commander with his own twisted vision of survival, they were determined to use the artifact's power for their own ends. They believed the artifact held the key to controlling the shockwaves or even harnessing the energy to become the dominant force in the galaxy. It was madness, but in a world that had collapsed, madness seemed like the only logical choice. Dr. Kapoor and General Holt found themselves caught in the middle of a bloody standoff between the loyalists and the insurgents. Each faction wanted control of the artifact for different reasons, but the consequences of its misuse were clear. One misstep, one wrong move, and humanity would be erased from the cosmos. Holt was a soldier, a man trained to handle situations like this. But even his military mind was pushed to the limit as he saw the madness unfolding before him. The rogue faction had no regard for the artifact's potential dangers. They were willing to sacrifice anything, even humanity's survival, to seize its power. Holt's loyalty to his soldiers and to the cause of humanity was tested in ways he had never anticipated. Kapoor, meanwhile, was horrified by the growing disregard for the artifact's purpose. It was meant to save humanity, to ensure its survival. But now it was being torn apart by ambition, greed, and a desperate desire to wield power. Could she stop it before the artifact fell into the wrong hands? Or was it too late? The revelation of the artifact's purpose had shaken Kapoor to her core. Was humanity truly worth saving? As the collapse of global society accelerated, Kapoor was faced with a haunting question. If Earth were to fall, would the cycle repeat itself once more? Would humanity learn from its mistakes, or would it simply become another casualty of the universe's indifferent forces? Kapoor's idealism, once so unshakable, had begun to crack. She found herself questioning everything she had believed about humanity's potential to change, to evolve. The very artifact they had fought to protect now seemed to symbolize the ultimate truth, that the universe's cycle of destruction and rebirth was beyond their control. Holt, too, had begun to face the moral dilemmas of his actions. His military background, rooted in the belief that the survival of the many outweighed the needs of the few, was being challenged by the very nature of the decisions they were forced to make. Should they continue fighting, pushing forward, risking everything for survival? Or was there a deeper, more painful truth to be acknowledged? The two were no longer just fighting for Earth's survival. They were fighting for their very understanding of what it meant to survive. And the answers they sought were not as simple as they once believed. The battle for the artifact reached a boiling point when the rogue faction launched their final assault. Their desperation and ambition reached a fever pitch as they stormed the site, hell-bent on gaining control of the artifact's power. General Holt and Dr. Kapoor found themselves standing at the epicenter of a violent struggle, where the stakes were higher than they had ever been. The artifact pulsed violently, as though aware of the chaos surrounding it. Kapoor's scientific mind raced as she tried to calculate the consequences of activating it in such an unstable environment. Holt, though, had no time for calculation. His focus was on protecting the artifact at all costs. The rogue faction had no intention of using the artifact for the good of humanity. They intended to wield it as a weapon of domination. As the battle escalated, Kapoor and Holt made their way to the artifact, knowing that they would have to make a choice. Should they destroy it to keep it from falling into the wrong hands or risk using its power to eliminate the threat? The decision could either save humanity or doom it forever. A split-second decision was all that stood between survival and annihilation. The immediate threat had passed. The rogue faction was defeated and the artifact was safe for now. But the cost of their survival had been high. Trust had been shattered, alliances fractured, and the moral weight of their choices weighed heavily on both Kapoor and Holt. The artifact's power remained an enigma, its true purpose still unclear. Could they continue to use it? Or had they simply postponed humanity's inevitable fate? Kapoor, ever the scientist, struggled to reconcile the potential for salvation with the fear of unleashing something far more dangerous than they could control. Holt, meanwhile, was haunted by the choices they had made, choices that would shape the future of Earth and humanity. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The fight for humanity's survival was far from over. The artifact had opened a door to a new future, but whether that future was one of hope or destruction remained to be seen. Each chapter of their journey had revealed more than just the struggles for survival. It had opened the door to the harsh truths about humanity's place in the universe. Would they rise above their flaws, or would they succumb to the same destructive patterns as the civilizations before them? Only time would tell. Dr. Kapoor's fingers hovered over the final sequence of alien symbols, her mind racing as she decoded the artifact's final message. The air around her seemed to pulse in rhythm with the artifact's hum, a deep resonance that felt more like a heartbeat than energy. The truth was about to reveal itself. Everything they had fought for, everything they had hoped, might crumble in this moment. The artifact had never been a savior. It wasn't designed to stop the supernova's wrath. Instead, it carried a truth, far darker. This cosmic destruction was not a singular event, but a cycle. Civilizations across the galaxy, from stars long dead to planets with forgotten names, had fallen victim to the same forces. Humanity's rise and fall were just another iteration of this endless cycle. The artifact's true purpose was not to save Earth, but to break that cycle. A moment of silence stretched between Kapoor and Holt, the weight of the revelation hanging heavy in the air. The artifact offered humanity a choice: break the cycle and sacrifice Earth, or try to save itself and risk upsetting the universal balance. The enormity of it was overwhelming. Kapoor's mind raced. Could humanity bear the cost of their existence, or had they already passed the point of no return? The choices laid before them weren't about survival anymore. They were about the fate of the universe itself. "Do we stop it?" Kapoor whispered, the question more to herself than to Holt. "Do we give up everything to end this endless destruction?" Holt stared at the glowing surface of the artifact, his jaw clenched. For the first time, survival wasn't a certainty. The decision was no longer just about saving Earth. It was about humanity's place in the cosmos. In the dim light of the artifact's glow, Kapoor took a breath. She could see the path ahead, but it terrified her. The supernova's destructive path was already in motion, but what if they could prevent another species from suffering the same fate? What if humanity's death could be a warning, a beacon, to future civilizations? Something greater than themselves? "I propose we use the artifact's power not to save Earth," Kapoor said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words, "but to send a message, a warning. If we break the cycle now, other civilizations might learn. They might change before it's too late." Her hands trembled as she reached toward the artifact's interface, her heart pounding. It was a gamble, a hope that their message would travel far enough to reach others before the inevitable cycle destroyed them. But the artifact's energy was unstable, volatile. Every second they spent trying to harness it risked ripping apart not only their world, but the fabric of space itself. Holt's eyes flashed with uncertainty. He had fought for survival all his life, each decision geared toward saving humanity. But the weight of Kapoor's proposal was undeniable. Could they choose to sacrifice everything for the greater good? Was this the moment when survival would no longer be the answer? You're asking us to give up everything, Holt muttered. To sacrifice the very survival of humanity for a future we may never see. It's the only way, Kapoor responded, her gaze unwavering. We can't save ourselves, but we can ensure others don't make the same mistakes we did. As the minutes stretched into an agonizing silence, Holt weighed the decision. His instincts screamed for survival, for doing whatever it took to protect the people he had fought alongside. But Kapoor's words, her vision, dared to shatter that certainty. Every life we save now could be the last, Holt finally said, his voice cold with the realization. But if we don't act, if we don't use the artifact's power to save ourselves, then everything we fought for means nothing. Kapoor clenched, her fists torn between two equally terrifying paths. The concept of survival had always been simple to her. Save humanity, do whatever it took. But now, she was forced to consider the possibility that survival at any cost might doom them all. Was it worth it? Was humanity worth saving if they were destined to repeat their mistakes forever? I don't know if we're meant to survive this, Kapoor said, her voice low. But if we don't break the cycle, if we don't end the destruction once and for all, then what does survival mean? The words lingered in the air, heavy and oppressive. They were at a crossroads where every step forward could lead to either salvation or destruction. Before they could resolve their internal struggles, an explosion rang through the air. The rogue faction had arrived. The roar of gunfire broke the fragile calm as soldiers from the rogue faction descended, their faces filled with desperation and greed. Holt's training kicked in immediately. His voice rang out, giving commands to his soldiers as they scrambled to position themselves. Defend the artifact. We can't let them take it. In the chaos, Kapoor's thoughts blurred. She wasn't a soldier, but her mind raced, calculating, strategizing. She couldn't let the rogue faction seize control of the artifact, not when it held the potential to change everything. But Holt's military instincts ran wild, pushing them further into the conflict. His soldiers fought with everything they had, firing at anything that moved. The artifact's energy surged as if reacting to the violence around it. Kapoor felt it, a pressure, building, a pulse that was too strong, too unstable to control. She could sense that if they didn't make a decision soon, the artifact might explode, ripping apart their world in a final, catastrophic wave. I need more time, Kapoor shouted over the din of gunfire. We have to get this under control now. Holt turned his gaze to her, his jaw set in determination. We don't have time. As the battle raged around them, Kapoor and Holt faced the inevitable choice. The artifact's power would either be their salvation or their doom. And no matter the outcome, their actions would determine the future of humanity and the universe. In a final gut-wrenching decision, Kapoor stepped forward. The chaos around her seemed to fade as she reached toward the artifact's core, preparing to activate it. The energy surged, spiraling out of control as she initiated the sequence. Holt's heart pounded in his chest as he watched. No, we can't. But it was too late. The artifact's energy rippled out, the atmosphere crackling with its power. The ground trembled and the world around them began to collapse, fracturing in the wake of the artifact's surge. As the energy began to tear at the fabric of the planet, Holt looked at Kapoor, a final decision settling in his gut. He rushed toward her, grabbing her arm, and for the first time he understood. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was about sacrifice. About doing what was right, not what was easy. No, he said, his voice steady. I'll make sure the message reaches them. In a final act of sacrifice, Holt activated the beacon within the artifact, ensuring that the warning, humanity's legacy, would travel across the galaxy. As the power surged, Holt stood beside Kapoor, knowing that this was the only way to end the cycle. It would cost him everything, but humanity's future was worth that price. As the shockwaves of the artifact's power spread out, Earth began to disintegrate. The very ground beneath Kapoor's feet cracked, and the sky above shattered into a cascade of cosmic energy. Earth, the cradle of humanity, crumbled into nothingness. But in the heart of the destruction, Kapoor stood, resolute. The artifact's final surge sent a message, a warning that would travel across the stars. Humanity's mistakes would not be forgotten. It would not be the end of the cycle. The universe had learned from their failure, and in time others would. As Earth disappeared into the void, Kapoor turned her gaze toward the stars, her heart heavy with the weight of sacrifice. They had done what they could. They had broken the cycle, even at the cost of their existence. In the silence that followed, there was hope, a new beginning, not for humanity but for the future. And that, in the end, was worth everything. The artifact hummed, its energy rising in an undeniable crescendo. Dr. Kapoor's fingers brushed against its surface as the final command was input, a decision made not just by her but for every living soul left on Earth. As the artifact's power surged, a pulse of energy shot outward, unleashing an unstoppable wave that reverberated through the very core of the planet. The shockwaves from the supernova collided with the artifact's force, the two powers merging in a chaotic clash that destabilized the world. Earth trembled as the ground split, mountains crumbled and oceans boiled under the pressure of cosmic forces. Every tremor, every crack in the earth, felt like the planet itself was screaming in agony as its life was torn apart. Kapoor watched in grim silence, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the world she had fought to save was beyond redemption. There would be no recovery. The Earth they had once known, lush, vibrant, full of promise, was now a fading memory, slipping into oblivion. But amidst the devastation there was something more. The artifact had fulfilled its purpose. Its power had not only sealed Earth's fate, but had also sent a final, far-reaching message into the cosmos. Humanity's mistakes would not be forgotten. The destruction was both an end and a beginning, a final lesson for the universe. Earth would perish, but the echoes of humanity's existence would reverberate across the stars, offering a chance for others to break free from the same destructive cycle that had claimed them. As Earth's final moments unfolded, a strange calm descended over Kapoor and General Holt. The world around them was chaos, an apocalypse in motion, but the artifact's message had begun its journey beyond the planet. Through the spiraling chaos of their doomed world, the transmission reached outward, piercing the fabric of space, carrying with it humanity's rise and fall, its arrogance and resilience. The message wasn't just about Earth's demise. It was about the unwavering human spirit. It spoke of hope, of resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. Despite the arrogance, despite the missteps, humanity's capacity to fight, to adapt, and to survive was undeniable. It was a legacy, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, ensuring that the mistakes of one civilization wouldn't be repeated by another. Kapoor's heart, heavy with the weight of the choice, now felt a strange peace. She had sacrificed everything, her home, her future, even the Earth itself. But in that sacrifice, humanity's message would live on, giving future civilizations a chance to avoid the same fate. Holt, too, reflected on the final act. Their survival, uncertain and fleeting as it was no longer important. They had done something far greater than just hold on. They had ensured that humanity's story would influence others, that its legacy would be a beacon, not a warning. The survivors drifted in the cold void of space, far from Earth's ashes, their bodies numb and their minds clouded with grief. Dr. Kapoor, General Holt, and the remaining few clung to life on a ship that seemed as fragile as the hope they had left. Earth was gone. The planet they had known, the world that had been their cradle, was no more. And yet, amid the vast emptiness, there was a sense of lingering purpose. The destruction of Earth had been brutal, a crushing blow to everything humanity had built. But the lesson carried with it a new beginning. For the first time in a long while, Kapoor didn't feel the weight of the future crushing her. Instead, there was the weight of responsibility, a responsibility to ensure that humanity's mistakes were never repeated. "We failed," Kapoor whispered, to herself, her voice a hollow echo in the silence of the ship. But maybe we can do better next time. Holt, sitting quietly beside her, pondered her words. For years, his life had been about ensuring survival, by any means necessary. But now, with nothing left but the void and the knowledge of what their survival had cost, he questioned everything. Was survival truly the goal if it meant repeating the same mistakes again and again? Could humanity evolve? Or was the cycle of destruction destined to repeat itself? The survivors knew that their fate was uncertain. They had done what they could, sacrificed what they had to. They had learned the ultimate lesson. Survival at all costs was not enough. Humanity had to change, or it would be doomed to repeat the same tragic cycle. But the survivors still held on to the hope that something could be done, that somewhere out there a second chance awaited. Drifting through the dark expanse of space, the survivors clung to the smallest thread of hope. They had no home. Earth was gone, its ashes scattered across the galaxy. Yet in their hearts a fragile hope lingered. Perhaps there was a place for them to rebuild. Perhaps somewhere in the vast unknown, there was a world untouched by the destruction they had wrought. The cold of space was oppressive, the silence deafening. But it was in this silence that the survivors began to find clarity. They were the last of humanity, the remnants of a species that had once reached for the stars. Their bodies may have been the last remnants of Earth, but their legacy, what they had learned from the destruction, from the mistakes of the past, would live on. And then the unexpected came. A message hidden within the data the artifact had sent surfaced. It was faint at first, like a whisper on the wind. An ancient message, a beacon left by another civilization that had faced the same fate. The message spoke of hope, of a distant, untouched planet where humanity might begin again. But the journey to this new world was not without peril. The cost was unknown, and the challenges ahead were as great as the destruction they had just endured. The survivors gathered around the ancient message, the words unraveling in their minds like a dream and a nightmare intertwined. A new planet, a place to rebuild, a second chance at life. It was tempting. The thought of starting anew, free from the mistakes of Earth, filled them with a sense of purpose, a spark of hope. But the question remained. Was it worth it? The journey was perilous, fraught with dangers they could not even comprehend. The cost of reaching this distant planet could be their lives. And even if they succeeded, what would await them? Would humanity repeat the same mistakes, or could they evolve, break free from the cycle of destruction that had claimed every civilization? Before them, Kapoor, once again the voice of reason, pondered the decision. "We could go," she said softly, "but at what cost? Will we ever change, or are we just running from the inevitable?" Holt, ever the soldier, saw the path ahead as one of action. "We've come this far. Maybe it's time to take that leap. We owe it to humanity to try." The survivors were left with the ultimate question. Would they choose to break free from the cycle of destruction that had claimed them, or would they continue to repeat the same mistakes? As they stood at the precipice of the unknown, the future lay before them, a vast uncertain horizon. The hope for renewal, the chance to create something better, was within their grasp. But the risks were immense, and the weight of their past was heavy. The decision loomed. Would humanity evolve, or would it fall into the same destructive pattern, doomed to repeat its past? The survivors knew that the answer was not clear, but their journey was just beginning. The choice was theirs, and with it the fate of a new world, a new beginning, and perhaps humanity's last chance.